Are the tempo markings in music scores suggestions or requirements? And what if the piece doesn't have tempo markings? In this video, we're going to look at several ways to set a final tempo. Hi, I'm Dr. Lory. Welcome back to my piano studio. We creative types don't always like to follow the rules, at least where our music is concerned. We like to express the music the way we want, and how fast we play the piece fits inside our definition of music expression. Early composers didn't tell us how fast their music was to be played. During the Baroque era, a good example is Bach's two-part Invention in C major. Because Bach gave us no information as to tempo, printed scores and recording artists play the piece anywhere from 60 to 120 beats per minute. That's a wide range of tempos. Let me show you. I'll play this Invention at 60, then 120, and then back to 60 beats per minute. The 120 speed is the outlier. Most speeds range from 60 to 80. You can hear the change of character when the tempo changes. It works in reverse too. Imagine hearing the Twist by Chubby Checker played at 60 instead of 160. I don't think so. Since the Baroque era, composers developed three ways to help musicians play the piece as the composer intended. The first was with descriptive language. Composers would use words to describe the speed of the piece. These terms were mostly written in Italian because Italian composers made such a huge contribution to classical music. But descriptive terms were subject to wide interpretation. The pianist would still need to decide how fast the piece should be played. After the metronome was invented in the 19th century, composers would include the actual beats per minute on the score. Beethoven was the first major composer to use metronome markings. Later on, the letters MM were used to reference Maitzel's metronome. Maitzel was the guy who first manufactured the metronome. So a marking of MM equals 138 would mean setting the metronome to a tempo of 138 beats per minute. An update to the MM marking is to use a rhythmic note value, like a quarter note, an equal sign, and a number. In this piece, it shows a quarter note equaling 120. A quarter note gets a beat, and there are 120 beats per minute. This is the most common way to show tempos on music scores today. So now we have several ways to determine what the final tempo should be based on the markings in the score. But there are other ways to determine the final tempo aside from the score itself. One good way is to listen to how other performers play the piece. This works for any piece, from classical to contemporary. Just search for the piece on your favorite music streaming service. Use your metronome to get an idea of the performer's tempo and whether that tempo works for you. A comment on listening to other performers. Even the best pianists will fluctuate their tempo. We are, after all, just human. So the metronome is simply a tool to help us keep close to a steady beat within a range of tempos. Small variations in tempo probably won't be noticeable to listeners. One bit of piano teacher opinion here. I also think that once I can play a piece strictly to a metronome, an unbiased standard, I earn the right to interpret the piece and express it by intentionally varying the tempo. The metronome allows me to deviate from a standard at which I perfected the piece. The last way to set the final tempo is to experiment. Find a tempo in the middle of the range you've discovered. Play the piece faster until it's too fast for your taste. Play it slower until it is too slow for you. You've now set your personal range. Somewhere in that range is your final speed for the piece. We're going to experiment with Beethoven's Für Elise. Even though Beethoven used metronome markings, he did not use metronome markings in this piece. But we do have some guidance. First, it was written for a love interest, which suggests a slower tempo, maybe even somewhat dreamy. However, some scores are marked poco moto, which means a little motion. So I guess maybe not too dreamy. Finally, recordings of Für Elise range from 70 to 140 beats per minute, but most hover between 96 and 120. For this exercise, I will use that range, and I will start at a middle tempo of 108. I'll start with slowing down, starting with 108, then 104, then 100, 96, and finally 92. I think 96 is about as low as I want to go here. Now I'll go back to 108 and go up to 112, 116, 120, and finally 126. You heard that I went one step above the range I mentioned to 126. This was just to check to see if I liked it faster than that. I didn't. I'm going to hold at 120. I still like my mid-range of 108 as a possible final tempo. But before I settle on this tempo, I need to do one more thing. I need to check this tempo on passages that have the fastest and slowest note values. First, I will test this tempo on the fast passage. Can I even play it at that speed? If not, I will have to practice the passage more or find a slower final tempo. So that works, but 108 might be risky. So let's try it at the lower end of the range, 96, and hear how that sounds. You know what? 96 is okay. So now my next step is to see how 96 sounds at a passage with slower note values. This drags. It needs to be a little faster. I'll go up a step to 100. And I'll add a little expression, a little phrasing, and a little rubato to keep things interesting. This is a good compromise. You'll do this back and forth with a piece until you find a tempo that works for you. Not too slow, not too fast. Wasn't that fun to experiment? It teaches us that tempo is often a personal thing. You as the pianist can interpret the pieces that you love. Performers of every music genre are all over the map in deciding how fast or slow they want to play a piece. Now you can join in because you know how to choose your own tempo in an educated way and in a way that supports your tempo choice. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. I read and respond to every comment, so please feel free to write. And if you are interested in online piano lessons with me, head on over to my website at lorypeters.com.